Here we are on the Illuvidex once more, guys. Once again, all the numbers here are placeholders. But as you're navigating here and you're taking a look at land, if you're interested in any of the regions such as Brightland Steppes or Steepies, I guess is the pronunciation being kicked around, this is it. Brightland Steppes right here. What is the elevator pitch? What is the summary of Brightland Steppes and what makes it unique?
Well, the place that we're playing in Illuvium Overworld basically is lifted up in the air. It's a very unique place. Somehow it's up in the clouds. Something is holding it up, and it's kind of weird. But if you
Interesting.
go there and you start exploring, maybe you'll find out. So
Got it. Yeah. So as you can tell, Roger is being cagey about details about each of these regions in terms of the very specifics. Namely because we want you gamers to explore all of this. We don't want to spoil it. So Brightland Steppes. Let's take a look. This is what he's talking about.
yes, if you can see at the background, there's all kinds of root systems, and a lot of stuff is elevated into the air. And as we go through so this is the obelisk region. This is actually in Brightland Valley, which is like the flattest of basically the whole region where you'll be playing. You'll almost be surrounded by all kinds of blocks of world lifted into the air, held up by these gigantic purplish roots.
I love that there's a valley in this area though, and that's where the obelisk is located. So you can kind of get the scale as you look up from the
Oh yeah,
valley at all of the elevated locations, which
it's
that scale,
intimidating.
yeah, it's intimidating. So lush, so different than Abyssal Basin, which
Yeah.
obviously was was teeming with swamp and marsh life. This is teeming with more like lush greenery here in this case. And here's that sort of view, if you will, from the valley looking out.
Yes. Yeah, the Brightland Steppes is very much a happy place. You shouldn't be feel like you're in danger or you feel like there's a mosquito in your neck. You know, it's not like that. It's happy. It's kind of open. It's very a lot of fresh air. There's a lot of clouds, but a blue sky. You know, it's not warm, but it's just nice. You know, like spring can be, I guess. And you're
Okay,
up
so
in the sky, so that's kind
this
of
might be number one vacation spot according to Roger in all of the Illuvium regions. Now, this cavern entrance is once again another example of leading the player into a new
yes.
area and making it intriguing. Tell us about where we are going.
Yeah, well, this is called Ribcage Cavern. This is how we sort of like design basically the world coming together and creating this slitter into the land. And you're basically going underneath a landmass. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that you're actually starting to climb underneath a landmass, and below you, there's actually sky. So you're up in the air. So you got to watch out if you're not going to fall down to I don't know what's below you, but you might fall onto it.
So it's a happy place, it's lush, but you could just die falling down. So there's always something trying to kill you in
Yeah,
Illuvium.
I
And then here's
guess.
the exit out of that area
Yes.
as well.
And yeah, exactly. And the exit actually brings you into a lorem ipsum. And if you would be walking out of this place, go back, then you'd sort of like enter almost an arena kind of feeling. It's like this park idea with waterfalls and blocks of land, and there's holes in the ground, but you're surrounded by sort of like this almost walls of giant rocks, which you can also climb and get on top too. So you're able to continue your journey to the next area.
I'm such a dummy. I thought Lorem Ipsum was literally a placeholder name, but
Oh
that's
yeah,
actually the name. Lorem Ipsum is like the most popular placeholder name, but that's the actual name of that area within this region. That's interesting.
that's I guess an inside joke. So yeah, we were. I remember this call that I had with Dimitri and I think Aaron maybe, and we were just sort of like trying to come up with names for this. And at some point, I just clicked on the Photoshop and it said Lorem Ipsum. I'm like, why don't we just call this Lorem Ipsum? And they were like, yeah. So then we went with Lorem Ipsum, and I guess it stuck around.
There you go. So creative decisions can be made very deliberately or just on the fly, and everybody's like, yeah, cool, let's do that. So there's definitely different ways that these different aspects of Illuvium are created.
Oh yeah.
Here, we're leading to, in my opinion, the most fascinating area, leading to those two towers. And just look at the
Yes.
scale of this. These towers towering into the sky, the waterfalls in the background. This is just massive to behold.
Yeah, this is like it changed significantly in the actual game because they got even bigger. They got
Oh,
like
wow.
absolutely enormous. When you're looking up, these like wherever you are in the level, there's like these two gigantic things sticking out in the sky. So
It got even bigger. That was not what I was expecting you to say. I was expecting you to say it got smaller, but of course it got bigger with
it got
Grant
bigger.
back there.
Exactly.
Yeah, just I've been in a private session with him before, and all of this concept art you're seeing, Grant and the team will go and handcraft all of these aspects from the concept art will be in the actual overworld game, handcrafting it, placing the rocks and the different elements into the space for players to enjoy. And that's really cool that if you have a cool concept in the concept art, why not make it even bigger? That makes sense.
Exactly.
Really interesting. So this is leading to the two towers. And then here is a plateau.
Yes. So the highest point, except for the two towers, is Falros Plateau, which is, as you can see, it's a bit less lush. And it's also like getting covered in ice every now and then because it's so high up and the wind is so strong. When a cloud comes by, it actually starts to sort of freeze everything. But as soon as it passed by, the sun is there again and it sort of turns back to normal. That's kind of like this thing that will characterize this piece of land.
Even more biome diversity and mechanics and variety for players that are going to be grinding these regions over and over again. That totally makes sense. And
The,
believe it or
yeah,
not, this is the same region here. So remember Abyssal Basin, everything, you had aspects of a region that looked totally different. This looks totally different than what we were just looking at. So there's more mushrooms. So tell us about the
yes.
parachute
Yes.
shrooms.
So Falros Plateau is so big and so high that it actually creates a shelter and sort of like an airless or windless pocket below it. And it sort of casts a shadow on this region called the Baron's Throne. And because there's so little wind here, this is actually one of the few places in all of Brightland Steppes where something other than grass can grow. And these kind of weird things started to grow up and probably work together with the roots, and they sort of blow themselves up with gas that's coming out of these roots. As you also notice in a lot of the other concept art, you see these bubbles everywhere, but here you don't. That's weird.
Massive visual variety. Lots of if we go back here, lots of pink in the previous biome, pink and green. And then we move
Yeah,
here in the variety, it's deeper purple and green, sort of a darker look. So I'm
it's a
glad that
bit
there's
more grim
variety
here.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because just having just a purely happy region, if you will, that has the same look, we get very samey and tiresome. So I love that there's a darker, more brooding
Yes.
part of this region. I'm very happy about that. Here's the throne you were talking about a moment ago, Baron's Throne.
Yes. Baron's Throne is the name of the region, and that's the name of the. Baron's Throne is also the name of the asset, basically. And there's this odd piece of land that's being held up by these, a lot more roots than most of the other parts, and it sort of naturally formed this weird structure that they called the Baron's Throne. And you can actually try and get up there, but you'll have to find a way to get up there. It's not going to be as easy, but it's probably going to be something cool up there. So
Hint, hint, hint.
might be worth a try.
Yeah. So first one to parkour up there, record it and tweet it at us. I'm sure you'll find something interesting. Maybe we're not making any promises. And then here's the Mausoleum, an interesting name because of the fossils. And you mentioned the
Yes.
bubbles earlier. So the bubbles are just out in this sort of more open space within Brightland Steppes.
Yes.
And those do not exist in the same areas where the parachute shrooms are. So
Yeah.
the Mausoleum, tell us about why it's called the Mausoleum.
Well, if you look really closely, you see an actual gigantic skeleton grown over. If you you can see it in the middle of the screen, there's like a rib cage, and then all the way at the end, there's a
Oh yeah, I do see
skull.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Right over here. So it's obviously kind
yes,
of blending in. It's right here. Here's the
yes,
skull. Here's the rib cage, and then it looks like some life is growing out of the vertebrae of the spine
exactly.
of the fossils. Wow, I didn't even see it on the first look. That's so well integrated into the art. But
Yeah,
obviously, if you
thanks.
get closer, you'll in the
Oh
actual
yeah,
overworld, you'll be
you'll
able to
notice.
maybe even go inside that rib cage or and what have you.
There's actually a very, very cool way of how you can actually travel into this region if you're in the Baron's Throne. Because if you're looking at, like, if you're standing right now to the lower left of that head, that's
Mhm.
where, almost into the clouds, that's where the Baron's Throne is. So if you want to make it into the Mausoleum, you can using the Baron's Throne. And you actually have to sort of like travel into the skeletons to get into this area.
Got it. There it is, everybody. I zoomed in. You spotted the fossils in this picture. Congratulations. You get some points. And here is an entrance to yet another kind of sub-region within this region.
Yes, the Axillon is called the Axillary Forest, which is also place that's have a lot of these rock trees, as we sort of try to call them. And the Axillary Forest is basically an area with a lot more of these trees, which sort of make an almost sometimes pitch black environment underneath all of these. You go a little bit further with the next slide, then you sort of get a shot from what's it like to be standing in there.
Got
Below
it.
it,
You stand here and then you behold what you're
yes, and
talking
there's all
about.
these
Got
things
it.
sort of like topping over you and taking away the light sometimes. Maybe they move a little, I don't know. And there's this water coming down and some clouds rolling in, covering up some visuals sometimes. And you also, of course, are able to get on top of it. I think in the next slide you see what it's like if you're
Oh
above.
wow, there's the forest roof. Got it. And for scale, of course, we have a
A human for
humanoid
scale.
here, just to
Yeah.
let you know the scale of this is absolutely insane.
Yep.
So
Pretty
obviously
much.
from here, you could definitely do some treetop hopping. I mean, it almost invites you to come in and just bounce from here, just do some parkour and bounce to bounce to bounce on these forest roofs. I mean, I might just parkour in there for a few hours,
Yeah.
just for
That's
fun.
we've designed the movement mechanics to be entertaining. You know, it's cool to just run around and jump and fly and stuff like that. That's one of
Very
the
cool.
reasons why all the areas are so big, because you can get so high and so far with them.